I'm Mark Groot, Customer Success Manager at the Software Improvement Group. I'm the host of today's Ask Me Anything session that is on the topic, why IT business alignment cannot wait. With me, I have a very, very honored guest, Koen. Maybe Koen, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, for sure, Mark. So I'm Koen. I have worked for over 10 years at SIG by now, where I have utilized background in software engineering, mostly in a consultancy role in the consultancy department, where I have advised customers on all things software quality related, and specifically on translating technical findings from our more technical consultancy teams to management advice. Since the beginning of this year, I've moved into the product team, where I now want to bring that experience into the product, Sigrid. So I'm focusing specifically on all things surrounding the manager, the IT manager persona.
Yes. So with that wealth of knowledge from your consultancy, bringing that into our product. So if you this is not the first Ask Me Anything that we have had. We've had a number of Ask Me Anything sessions in the last months, but obviously with the summer we've taken a bit of a break, and now we're back with Bridging IT, why IT business alignment cannot wait. The recording of previous sessions are available online, and next month we have another one which I think is very relevant in this day and age, and that's about how to work smarter with coding assistants. So AI is obviously a buzzword that you cannot have any meeting with software vendors with SaaS companies without hearing that at least a number of times. So also for us, we are doing a lot of things in this area. So next month we want to talk to you about how you can boost efficiency without risk, especially when you build with AI coding assistants. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're talking about business and IT alignment. So with that, I think I want to give the floor to Koen, but I think we also have a poll question that we want to ask all of you guys. So I want to launch the first poll for today, just to make this a little bit more interactive. As we said, if there are Q&A questions, if you have questions for Koen, for me, for anything on this topic or regarding another topic, there is the Q&A box in the bottom. If you ask a question there, I will get it and I will be able to ask that to Koen. But without further ado, I want to launch the first question. And while I do that, maybe Koen, you can also kind of do a bit of a voiceover for that.
Yes, indeed. So what we have been running into, we have a lot of experience as SIG, of course, around software quality, more than 25 years. And our strength has always lied into providing factual insights, but these are mostly still on a technical level. Over the years, we have already made efforts to bring that up to higher levels in the organization, because, of course, software quality is a concern that needs to be discussed on all organizational levels, also to make sure that this is brought in line with, for example, strategic goals. We have done that by, for example, translating technical findings to risks in the platform. But what we notice is that still too often, also in our consultancy projects, we meet organizations where, for a very varying amount of reasons, software quality is not yet a sufficiently present topic on the leadership level. And of course, that severely also limits the impact that organizations can have on that software quality. And it also severely limits the extent to which more technical stakeholders and employees can contribute and move companies forward in line with strategic goals. So we're very curious, at least in your experience, in your situations, what you see as occurring reasons, situations for that.
And I see that there's a number, so there's quite a lot of people that filled it in already. It neatly gets into there's one very clear winner, and it does spread out quite nicely. But without further ado, I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And I think we see a result that is something that we've noticed ourselves, right, Koen?
Yeah, for sure.
The developer issue, and it's not really it's hard to translate it towards management and something that they care about.
Yeah.
And well, as luck would have it, this is something that we've also taken to heart. And we want to tell a little bit about that story today.
Yeah. No, it's indeed something that we very much recognize from the work that we do. Quality is seen as a developer issue, and I think, yeah, the cause of this goes sort of both ways. So I think on the one hand, yeah, software quality is primarily, at least currently, seen as a technical concern. Many tools that you can buy and use approach software quality from a technical angle, and it makes it quite difficult to talk about software quality to less technical stakeholders in the organization without resorting to technical terms. And yeah, on the other hand, of course, leadership has experienced this, and they, I think, over time have gotten accustomed or used to the fact that they don't understand much about software quality. So I think it's even not just a situation where we need to just provide better tools to give the insights needed, but it's even a shift in mindset for many organizations to get used to the fact that at the leadership level, you can actually have insight into IT concerns and software quality. Yeah.
Okay, well, sounds very interesting to me. I know that you have prepared a little story about kind of the way that we are approaching that exact topic. So very curious to hear kind of about what that topic is, and kind of bring us along in your story and in your thinking, and what we have been doing at SIG in the last months to help with tackling this exact challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Mark. So, yeah, so shifting up, I have, I think, in other words, already described a little bit how control over software quality needs to move upwards in organizations, for example, to leadership level. And that's what the shifting up refers to. But of course, shifting up is a nice, yeah, word play on, I think, the shift left that many people in this AMA session will recognize. So shift left, to go into that a little bit, is let's say, an approach where you move focus on software quality to earlier on in the process. Traditionally, many years ago, especially when you look at, for example, the waterfall approach, focus on software quality and on testing, for example, was done relatively late in the process, because first you designed your software, then you started building, and only at the end was there focus for quality and testing. The problem with that is that if you find issues later in your test process, you need to go back all the way. You need to redesign again, re-implement, retest. And the shift left approach is about moving that focus on software quality much more early in the process to significantly reduce the costs, and also, for example, delays as a result of under par software quality. So this is really about optimizing cost and reducing risk. So this is something that many of you will recognize and will know. I'll get back to this a little bit later. I want to make a little jump to the picture that I have on the slide here. If you look at nowadays at the type of software development processes and projects that organizations execute, you can roughly divide these projects into three kinds of projects. The first one is refactoring. Refactoring is where, as you also see here, developers mainly improve existing software so that it is, for example, better maintainable, better performant, more secure. But in the basis, you keep working with the software that you have. So you make smaller improvements to improve existing code. The second type of project is modernization, where you really, for example, change the architecture of a system, apply new methodologies to really, move along with developments in the market. And this is definitely a much more impactful project and generally executed on the architect level. And then you have transformational projects where you really do a complete overhaul of your software. And this usually involves rebuilding software, even redesigning, for example, the infrastructure behind it. And this is very impactful and usually steered from C-level or leadership level. If you look at where you can see the most impact, where there is the largest scope of influence, the largest impact of decisions, largest cascading effect, and therefore also the largest costs involved, then that definitely resides in the top, in the transformational projects, because these are much bigger, much more impactful. However, if you look at where control over software quality in most organizations primarily lies, then you will see that that is at the architect level and at the developer level. Many tools that you can use and that organizations do use are technical tools that support mostly developers. And even when you move to the architect level, you already see that it becomes more difficult for architects to have strong insights into the software portfolio. And Sigrid has already been providing a lot of value in this by, for example, providing insight into the architecture of software and not the designed architecture, but actually the current actual architecture as we measure it in code. And also, if we jump back to the shift left model, that is also a methodology that mostly resides in this orange box. It's mostly affecting the work that is done by developers and by architects, because those are the stakeholders and the personas that focus on quality and on testing. So yeah, then I think the gap here becomes evident. The area where you have the largest impact on software quality has currently the least control over software quality. And organizations struggle with this. And that's really what we're set out to improve. So to jump to a few concrete examples, when we, for example, talk to C-level or to leadership, what we hear is that they have a lack of control and oversight, while costs of IT and software development rise every year. Also, the information and the reporting in the organization is often so technical that they basically don't even get involved anymore, because it's difficult to have valuable takeaways and to really get involved in discussions. And you also see that only when things go wrong or potentially go wrong, executives and senior leadership jumps in. But it's also the other way around. It's not only a challenge for leadership, but also more IT-oriented personas struggle with this because they want to convey and quantify technical concerns and priorities so that they get budget for these concerns. They want to make sure that technical changes are also prioritized and that organizations do not only focus on functional changes. And overall, getting a seat at the table for strategic decisions is proving challenging for many IT personas in many organizations. So this is really a challenge that goes both ways. This difficulty in translating. And the pain that is evident from this is that without visibility in software quality at a senior leadership level, organizations lack control and strategic alignment. So IT organizations perform valuable work. And of course, in all departments, we have a lot of smart people working. So not everything goes wrong all the time. But you can at the same time not state that there is a full alignment with strategic direction of organizations. And that leads to higher risk, rising costs, and eventually also slower business progress. And so this is what the shift up is all about. Organizations need to shift up. They need to bridge that gap between technical personas and leadership level so that everything that IT organizations do is in line with strategic objectives. And at the same time, priorities that are relevant for a mature IT organization are also sufficiently taken into account when taking those strategic decisions.
Am I then kind of correct to try to really see this as also kind of closing that feedback loop? Because you talked about originally, a lot of times these decisions tend to cascade down, right? Transformations are modernizations and refactorings. It's really something that, certain transformation decisions get started at the top and then things cascade down. And what we really see is that IT organizations are not always able to close that feedback loop and kind of bring that feedback back to the top. Is that kind of that?
For sure, that's a challenge that results from this, for sure. Yeah.
And I've been working with a lot of customers, and I think this is something that at least the customers I'm working with, quite a number of them will underpin this as well. So, I mean, I see a few of them. I see a few of them in the plus party entities. So I think especially for but I'm sure that this is, as you said, a bit more a generic problem, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So in a bit, of course, we'll show some exciting stuff that we're working on. And of course, we have also been validating and showing this to many of our customers already. And it's really nice to see indeed, the value and the validation that we get back from those new insights that we're creating. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so a little bit jump then to what we have been working on. We have been working on a new management dashboard over the past period. And we have recently, I think it's still this month, in October, we have officially released this first version of the management dashboard. And we have gathered, of course, a lot of input on what IT leaders, but also other IT personas struggle with. And we have tried to capture that in this first version. Of course, we have many more plans to improve this. And at the end of the session, I'll also go a little bit into what those plans are. But for now, the management dashboard focuses on three key questions. The first one is, am I in control? Of course, that's probably the key thing that leaders need to demonstrate towards the organization, and that they, of course, want to be themselves. So, am I in control? Represent a set of findings that really, on a high level, indicate progress towards, for example, resolving security findings and so on. Secondly, you want to know if you're doing the right things, because if you're not doing the right things, then that control will slowly flow away from you. And lastly, you also want to know, okay, with all the great things that I'm doing, or at least the great things that I think we're doing, are we also moving in the right direction towards improvement? So these are the three key questions that the new management dashboard gives insight into. And if it's okay for you, Mark, I'll jump to the live demo.
Yeah, I know exactly. While you do that, I want to urge everyone that if you have any questions at any point, go into the Q&A box at the bottom and type your questions in there. And then I will make sure that I'll cover them with Koen.
Yes, indeed. Happy to have a nice discussion about any questions that might exist, because it also provides us valuable input for the further development direction.
Actually, just before you go into the demo, I think we had another poll question to ask.
Yeah.
So
let's go ahead.
Let's do that first before we go into the dashboard. So I think the second question, which data would help leadership care more about quality? Because we don't want to we want to have you have an open mind, because obviously we have an opinion on this, which is already covered in the management dashboard, and we have obviously great plans also for the future for that. But we're also happy to hear from you what you think. So, what do you think? Which data would help leadership care more about quality? So I'm seeing there's quite a lot of people that with multiple choice. Obviously, you can do all of them. So I see quite a lot of people that are sort of not like that are hitting more than one option, but that's good, because at least I think that means that people want to people want to think along with us, right? So what type of data would you need, or would management need to care about quality and care about the longevity of applications and the sustainability of your whole landscape? So I see that there's quite some people that I've answered. So I'm going to stop the poll here, share the results. I think Koen, you're obviously also sort of curious to see what people have said.
I'm curious for sure. Oh, that's quite balanced indeed.
It's quite balanced, but as you can see, so there's definitely people that filled in more than one option. But you do see that at least all of them are to some extent relevant. Some maybe a little bit more than others. So is there anything that you take away from this?
That's a good question. Yeah, so I think what it shows me, these are of course all topics that we work with, mostly also in our consultancy projects. But of course, the consultancy projects that we perform are not isolated, and these are all concerns that are also valid for our Sigrid development direction. I think the cost of technical debt, that's something that we hear many organizations struggle with, because I think it probably cannot really get more technical than technical debt. This is maintenance that you need to perform that down the line gives you an advantage, of course. It helps you move faster, it helps you reduce cost and reduce risk. But it doesn't present an immediately visible advantage. It's hard to make this quantifiable and practical. So we see many IT departments struggle with letting this win the battle with functional business requests, for example. Because generally there are customers or users asking for certain functionality. And then the translation to value and to money is much more direct. So this is indeed one that is high on our radar. Technical debt, of course, is very important to give attention to, but we need to translate this to something that resonates with the other concerns that are also at play at organizations. Yeah.
Well, I think with that, curious to see the Sigrid management dashboard.
Indeed. Okay, let's jump into it. Live demo. So let's hope all goes well. Okay, so this is the page that you would normally see when you open Sigrid. This is the portfolio dashboard. So some time ago, a month ago or so, we also released a new navigation structure. And so if you want to find the management dashboard that we're talking about today, you click on the menu icon in the top left, and then you click on dashboard. Very simple. Oh, need to re-authenticate.
Now you see that it's really a live demo.
Exactly. All right, so this is the new management dashboard. Let me close here the menu to have a little bit more space in the screen.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question from a customer, which I think is I want to interrupt you because I think it's a good one. Is this available for all of our customers?
Yes, this is available for all of our customers. So if you have access to Sigrid, you can log in and jump straight to it.
Good. I think it's good to kind of get that out of the way in the start, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Indeed. All right, so currently we have two, let's say, focus areas in the dashboard. The first one is security, and the second one is quality. We have always had a very strong focus historically on code quality, and mostly meaning maintainability, because maintainability has direct effect on cost of maintenance and development. But what we see, let's say over the last year or so, that security is becoming more and more a relevant topic, and it's actually for many organizations becoming much more important than the maintainability or what we have captured here under quality. So for us, security is really the first topic that we want to focus on this dashboard. I also mentioned the three questions that we're focusing on: the am I in control, am I doing the right things, and am I moving in the right direction? And you see that the management dashboard captures that in three different sections on this page. So starting with am I in control? For the am I in control, first of all, we use the star ratings that we're famous for. These star ratings are benchmarked on a scale from 0.5 to 5.5 stars, where 3 stars is a market average. So yeah, from the last poll, one of the answers was also comparison to competitors. That is what this is essentially. And you also see the description next to it. We're currently, by the way, looking at an open demo system that is comprised of open source systems. And you see that this portfolio, in terms of security, scores a little bit lower than the benchmark. One of the things we want to, of course, do on this management dashboard is translate technical findings also to more realistic impact. So what we do is we do not only show the star rating, but we also indicate, if you want to compare yourselves to the market, then you're doing currently 0.9 times as good, or in other words, you are 10% more prone to data breaches and reputational damage than other organizations in the market. That is a direct result of the security findings that currently reside in your portfolio. What we look at here in the bar chart below is we look at how many existing security findings do you have in your organization, how many new findings have arisen in the period that is indicated in the top right, and how many findings have you resolved in the same period. Now, what we can take away from this portfolio is that around 3.2K findings have been resolved, but in the same period, 3.6K findings have been introduced. So that means that the number of security findings in this portfolio is increasing, and that's of course not a good trend to see. We're looking here at all security findings, but it's also possible to, for example, only look at the critical findings, which are much more impactful. And also here you see the same trend. So there are significantly more critical findings introduced than have been resolved in the same period.
Yeah.
You want to ask a question more?
No, so that was originally my question as well.
Okay.
And I think another important question is how do we come from that open and resolved findings, sort of the amount of findings, to that 10% more prone to breaches?
Yeah.
How do we come to that calculation?
Yeah, so that's a benchmarked approach. So what we do is we take the amount of findings, but also the severity of each findings, right? So, for example, if all of these findings would be low severity findings, then that would result into a different comparison to the benchmark. But what we do is we look at how many findings an organization has in each risk category, and we compare that to all the other systems that are part of our benchmark. And based on that, you end up somewhere on the scale. In this case, this is the 2.6 star rating on the scale, so a little bit below the average. And based on the way the model is set up and the benchmark calculations, we can then also calculate that you have a 10% higher chance of negative effects than the average systems in the benchmark. So this is affected by the number of security findings in your portfolio, but also the severity of the findings.
Yeah, and I have another question from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
The question is if we can also exclude systems from this dashboard. If we can, so if there's, I can imagine there might be a dev branch and a main branch, for example.
Yes.
You want to say like, okay, I only want to have my main branch count.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
So by default, the view that we're having now is we're looking at the whole portfolio, and from that whole portfolio, there are no systems that you can exclude from the whole portfolio view other than removing them from your measured portfolio. But what you can do is, just like many other pages in Sigrid, in the top right, you have filter abilities. And there you can look at specific parts of your landscape. So for example, we have a division in this open demo portfolio that focuses on the industrial automation systems. And these are divisions that everyone, all our customers can also configure in their own portfolio. And you see that that affects the findings. In fact, it removes the findings in this case. And that can very well be because there are no security findings or because no new measurements have been performed in the period that we're looking at. So if I look at, for example, the front-end systems, then you do see the data coming back. You can also filter by specific teams in your portfolio, supplier, etc. There are various options that you can configure, and these are all metadata options that you can configure in your portfolio yourself.
And I think that this already shows that allowing a little bit of a drill down, right? Because you can say like, hey, which team or which division is then,
for sure.
Because we saw before that there was more new findings and resolved findings, but now we see that it's at least not the front end team because they had more resolved than new ones, right? So also there, that allows for that. For the next question is like, okay, well, hey, where is that then coming from?
Yeah, now indeed. So the management dashboard, the primary goal is showing where you're standing. But of course, the immediately next question will be, okay, where do my findings come from, and what can I do to make them more positive?
Yeah.
All right. So if we scroll down, we are then moving to: are we doing the right things? Are we spending our time in the way that yields the most value to us? And what we look at for security specifically is how many new findings have been identified, how many existing findings were there, and how many findings have been resolved. And again, you can also filter that across the different severity levels. So you see here that there is a very large amount of security findings present in these open source systems, and findings are being resolved. In some months, it's a little bit more than has been coming in, but also if you look back at December, you see that more findings have been coming in than resolved. But this is for all the findings. And frankly, in a management dashboard, I think the medium and the low severity findings are not that critical. And That's actually also a nice bridge to some changes that we are currently making to the dashboard. We want to increase the focus on the higher severity items. But if you, for example, look at the critical findings, then you already see a little bit more interesting developments. So you see that in April, there has been more activity and more resolved, but also at the same time, more new findings have been coming in. Then you see several months where there is little activity on security on the security area, and in July there is also a little bit more activity. You can do that same for high severity findings. So this gives you a little bit more insight into when things are happening and whether you're keeping pace with your security findings throughout the year. But the chart on the right also gives insight into how fast findings are being resolved. So yeah, you can ideally, of course, you want critical findings to be resolved as soon as possible. There will always be a period where they will be unresolved because that's the time where they are discovered. And then, of course, the teams need time to resolve them. Well, we say if you're resolving the critical findings within 7 days, then you're doing great. Between 7 and 14 days is also still okay. And then if you're taking longer than that, yeah, then you are at risk of having your critical findings reside basically too long in your portfolio. But that urgency, of course, also depends on other factors like is your system public facing? How important is security for those specific systems? So that's also the reason why we're not coloring those categories red, but giving them a more neutral color. But the more you can have in the green areas, the better it is. We look at, for example, the high findings. You see that here quite some good activity has taken place in August, and actually in August, the majority of the high risk findings have been resolved within 2 weeks. So that's really nice.
Yeah. Okay. And I can imagine that also here you can say, like, if you want to say, I only want to look at the customer facing systems, also there you can use the filter for that, right?
Exactly. So when you apply the filters, they affect the whole page, so including these charts. So if we scroll down into the filter window when we select public facing, then we see indeed some changes. Of course, the open demo systems are systems that are not always structurally maintained. So you see that the findings vary a little bit here.
Yeah.
I think in more commercial organizations, you would definitely hope to see a little bit better numbers here. But again, all depends on context and on priorities in the organization, etc.
One more question from the audience.
Mhm.
That has to do with the how to say that, the grouping, so to say. So here it says at most 14 days, 14 and 30 days, and 30 and
Yeah.
90 days. To what extent can customers configure that themselves?
Yeah, these groupings, by the way, you see that they differ a little bit if you go through the severity levels. So the green risk category is 14 days for high level items. But when you look at critical findings, this becomes a shorter period. And these are periods that we have configured based on what we think are the periods that you should stick to. So at the moment, these are not configurable. We are looking into what we can do with the configurability of the charts. For us, that's always a balance between what flexibility do we give to users, and to which extent do we still want to prescribe what we think your focus should be. And we always try to strike a nice balance between that.
I can imagine that for certain companies that have customers out there that have certain policies around this, I can imagine that the question might come from there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, then we have one more section and we scroll down, and that's the are we moving in the right direction? And that's where you see some trend lines. These are connected to the objectives that you can configure in Sigrid, which we'll not go into today in detail, but the objectives functionality has been available for quite some time in Sigrid. And that's, of course, very well tied to the management dashboard. So what you see here is that this portfolio has certain objectives configured, for example, for the open source health vulnerabilities. And it's not doing so well because the adherence to that objective is becoming lower and lower over time. And the security severity objective is doing a little bit better, but over the period of a year, you also see here that it's very stable. So this applies stable and low at the same time. So this also shows that the focus on and the effort towards these objectives is not high enough at the moment. All right. So that's for the security overview. Then let me also jump quickly to the quality page. In the quality page, of course, in the top, we see the same star ratings. They work similarly, and I will not go into detail on how they work differently, but the same structure is applied here. Here, if we scroll down, we want to look specifically at how is the effort distributed across the portfolio. And what we look at is, again, we use that metadata that is available for the whole portfolio. We look at the business criticality of systems and how much time you are spending on changing those systems of different business criticality. So we see that in November, a lot of effort, over 60%, has gone into business critical systems. And that sounds quite plausible. But if you look at, for example, March, you see that almost all of the effort spent in that month has gone to medium or low business critical systems. And that really, of course, there can be very specific reasons for this, but at least it's reason to look into this and to check, hey, have we really been spending our effort in a way that makes sense for our strategic goals? If we look on the right-hand side, we look at technical debt, and here we see an aggregation of how the technical debt is developing in the portfolio over time. So you see that in most months, technical debt has been increasing for the whole portfolio, except for a little bit in March and to a larger extent in April, where in addition to technical debt introduced in some systems, in other systems, technical debt has been resolved. But overall, also here you can conclude that this is not moving in the right direction and that the teams working on these applications are not spending their effort on the things that they maybe should be spending on.
I think one thing that I quite liked is, in terms of like drinking your own champagne, I had a conversation about this dashboard with our own head of development.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that she mentioned around kind of the proportion of change was around kind of like in looking for outliers. So it's not about like having 15% in one month and 16% in the other month and then saying like, hey, where does that 1% come from? But apparently earlier this year, there was 1 month where we spent a lot of time into some non-critical systems. And then indeed, as head of development, you want to know like, hey, why that change? And then there was a reason why we could, where the team could explain that. But it allows to ask these type of questions. And I think that was quite insightful.
Yeah, so indeed, what Mark said, it's indeed about looking at outliers. But in addition to that, I think looking at outliers is a very good approach if you generally have your processes in order. But in the end, of course, what also matters is over time you want to see improvements in where your efforts are going, at least in line with the expectations that you have. So if you expect to spend, let's say, more than half of your effort on business critical systems, and you see that this is structurally lower than that, then you also want to make structural changes that help you to move that time spent into the applications that matter most to your organization. All right, so one last thing that we can jump into is, I already mentioned, once you have these initial insights and you want to understand where things are coming from, you of course want to drill a little bit deeper into the findings. That's what the view details buttons do here in this overview. So for example, if we want to dive deeper into the security ratings for maintainability, we can click on the view details button. And welcome back, Mark.
Yeah, well, this is how we know that it's real life, right? I don't know what happened. I'm in our office, but somehow our internet connection dropped for a second. But I'm back.
Yeah, so I am also in the office, and for me it kept working. So yeah, this shows that you can never really control what IT does. But luckily that we had redundancy between the two of us.
Yeah. Can't control what IT does, but at least you can see the quality of what they built.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so I'm just, I've moved on and I'm quickly showing how you can also drill deeper into the findings. So from the management dashboard, if you want to dive deeper into the maintainability findings, you can click on the view details button. If we go back quickly, if we, for example, want to look at security findings, we can also click on the View Details button. And then we move to a security page that has much more detailed findings.
Fantastic.
All right.
I think that a lot of customers have already seen some part of this in conversations with either their success manager or with someone from the account team. And while we're obviously always eager to get feedback, we're even more eager to get feedback on this new feature with this management dashboard, because this is not completely done yet, right, Koen?
No, I would say on the contrary, we just got started, and this is we have been working on this for a while, and we really wanted to get it out there because things that you're not releasing cannot be used. So for us, this is really a first version, but we have a lot of plans to improve this even further. So let me actually jump back to the presentation where I have a quick overview on the key topics that we're working on. So what we have done, we have released the first version this year. Then there are 3 key topics that we want to work on going forward, in not necessarily in order of priority, but the first one is improving the drill down. So the drill down is what we refer to as diving into the deeper details of findings. Currently, we have links from the management dashboard to existing pages in Sigrid, but we want to make that much more specific. For example, we want to introduce the ability to click on specific parts of charts so that you can see basically what is in those parts that you clicked on. If you want to look at the number of security findings has increased in a certain month, you can click on that part and then you see exactly for which systems new security findings have been introduced. So that's the improved drill down. And what is also important to mention is that this drill down, it's not just for users of the management dashboard, but it's also very much a facilitator of collaboration across all levels in organizations. And that's very much what we, of course, want to achieve. The shift up is not only about bringing technical findings to leadership level, but it's about making sure that everybody in the organization at different levels of technicality can talk about the same findings, but each in their own language. And for that, this drill down and this collaboration is very necessary. The second one is if we really want to get a seat at the table and become relevant on leadership strategic concerns, then eventually you need to translate technical findings to things that resonate at the leadership level and at the strategic level. So what we're going to work on is connecting technical objectives to business concerns. So that you, for example, can see how certain findings contribute to the time to market of your portfolio, to the recurring cost of your portfolio, etc. That's a very clear, important one. And then the third of the 3 pillars that we want to work on is to expand the insights that we have. We also call it smarter insights. And that basically means that we start to make deductions across capabilities. So we will not look at security and isolation, maintainability, isolation, etc. But we bring those things together. We also take into account the metadata that we have about systems, like the business criticality, and use that data, the combination of the data, to be able to present better insights into what needs your immediate attention, what is developing, let's say, away from the expectations that you have or the objectives that you have set. So those are the 3 pillars. So they improve the drill down and the collaboration, connect technical objectives to more business level concerns, and make the insights that we show in Sigrid also smarter with better deductions that utilize all of our consultancy experience. And then in the bottom, you also see facilitate offline reporting processes. That's a little bit of a fourth one that we work on also, alongside of the other ones, because we also realize that if we want to reach leadership level, all leadership levels in organizations, then we cannot rely on everyone always logging into Sigrid. So we also realize that instead of a, let's say, a pool-based approach, we also need to push some information to some people that prefer that. And for that, we are also working on offline reporting of some of the findings in Sigrid.
Fantastic. So I know that you are talking to a lot of customers about the management dashboard, right? So kind of looking forward, looking at these things in your conversation with customers, what have they kind of alluded to, or what have they shared with you about something that they are really excited about? Like, what is that they see a tremendous value in? I mean, I can imagine all three, but from those three, is there even more a winner from one compared over the other?
It varies a lot. So we recently had a conversation with a very interesting customer of ours, and when we presented him with all these priorities that we're working on, and we asked him to choose what was most important or what was most relevant, not only for himself and his organization, but also potentially for other organizations. He mentioned all of them are important, and that's also what we heard back from other customers. So now I'm taking this specific conversation, but we have heard this multiple times. But that actually makes us very happy because that shows us that we're really thinking in the right direction. When we, several years ago, when we were very much focusing on developing stronger capabilities for the architect persona, eventually after research, we ended up in a similar situation where many customers told us, hey, the three things that you're looking into, they are all relevant and they sort of enrich each other, they strengthen each other. And we have been working on those, and that has really resulted in a lot of happy customers for that on that architect level. And so for us, it's not an issue at all to hear customers say, hey, I cannot choose, they are all equally important. Because that means that we're really on the right track.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I think one question that I haven't seen asked yet, but I've had a lot of customers asking me this. It's like, okay, well, this is great insights. How would you advise us, as experts and sort of from a best practice advice perspective, in bringing these type of insights into our processes? Is this like a monthly report towards management? Is this something that we would need to sit down with them on a bi-weekly basis? Is this something that you would consider doing on a sprint per quarter? Like, can you maybe share your thoughts on how you would advise customers bringing kind of these insights towards the management?
Yeah, that's my answer here is very, very consultancy. It depends. There is no let's say timing or process that I would say, hey, this is the magical bullet, this is how you need to do it. I think what is important is that software quality topics, IT topics become a key conversation at board level, at senior leadership level. And for that to happen, you need to integrate these concerns, IT concerns, into other reporting processes that are already taking place. So you shouldn't, let's say, invent some other process to report about that. You really need to merge this with reporting on other relevant organizational leadership topics. And so for every organization that's different, how they report, that can be a monthly, some organizations want weekly updates, that can really differ a lot. But I think what is the most important is that IT becomes a concern of equal importance to other organizational concerns.
Yeah. So you're saying don't set up completely new processes just because there's a new dashboard and new insights. Really try to see how can it fit into maybe potential existing processes and existing reporting structures, and really strengthen those. Is that kind of?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And the goal for us, and of course for that we also need input from our customers, is to get to talking about software quality and IT in a way that you don't need to fight for a spot at the table anymore, but you get the spot.
Yeah.
That's what we're working towards. Yeah.
Well, on that note, Koen, I want to thank you so much for your time. Very insightful.